So welcome back to the Creating Synergy podcast. Today we're very excited to have Linda Feldt, the CEO of the ACH Group, on the podcast. So the ACH Group is one of South Australia's largest and most respected aged care providers who are dedicated to transforming the aged care experience. So thank you very much for coming on, Linda.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. Great to be here.
Linda, I know a little bit about you and obviously the ACH journey, but for those listening in, I'd love to learn a little bit more about your earliest context. Who is Linda? Like, what do we need to know about Linda, the person who's sitting in front of us today?
I think it's probably important for people to know that I come from a regional community. So I was born and raised in Mount Gambier in the southeast.
Oh, beautiful. Great part of the world.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, for all of you out there, you would know it most famously for the Blue Lake.
Yeah.
So I come from a regional background, great sense of community, lots of values, grew up in a great environment, great family. Mum and Dad had really strong values, and I'm really anchored to those values today. Still have my dad and my sister and my niece still living in Mount Gambier, and a lot of my uncles and aunties and broader family still from there.
Beautiful. So you talked about values for a sec there. I'm very interested in this. What family values did you have, and what core philosophies did you learn from your family in those days? That you bring today to in your life?
I mean, I think all of those things about being honest, you know, having integrity, all of those great values, you know, being a good communicator and making sure that the people around you are looked after and, you know, really looked after.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important to me. Certainly, I've got my mum's voice in my head saying, if you can't say anything nice, then you shouldn't say anything at all.
Yeah, great.
And, you know, those are values that I, you know, make sure that my own daughter, Olivia, has those same strong values. You know, Mum and Dad had a really strong work ethic, and that has really translated into me and who I am. And, you know, my mum as well, she always used to say, you know, if I had the same opportunities that you have, Linda, I would go and do bigger and better things. And I think, you know, in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, how lucky am I to have had the opportunities that I have had to grow and learn and succeed. So very, very lucky to have had their support and help and guidance.
Brilliant. So your mum, she around still? She's still?
No, unfortunately, my mum died a few years ago. She had ovarian cancer, so that is a very sad thing for our family.
Yeah.
But my dad still runs an amazing school holiday program for my daughter.
Okay. Oh, yeah, taking her down there, yeah.
He's amazing. He's been a great support for our family since she passed away, and we all miss her incredibly. But her legacy lives on in us and our children and everything she's taught us.
Condolences to you and the family. The philosophies of growing up out in the regions and the community, I'm interested in that. It feels like that's kind of where you've ended up again in your role. You're back into a community, I guess, something where everyone's sort of working towards the same outcome. Is that what you found, your experience be, that the real community feel of being in the regional town of Mount Gambier to now being in the, not the big smoke of Adelaide, but into the capital city of South Australia in Adelaide, and then obviously back into a purpose-driven company?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can't walk down the street in Mount Gambier without my dad stopping at least 10 times. And that does blow my daughter away, actually, because it's not the same sense of connection that we feel perhaps in, you know, bigger cities than you do in those smaller regional places where you've got connection everywhere.
Absolutely.
So I think absolutely it translates into what we know about older people and the value that staying connected to their community and to the things that they love as they age is absolutely important because, you know, the value of staying socially connected and connected to your community is really powerful and contributes to the well-being of older people. So can I relate one to the other? Absolutely. And that sense of community is something amazing that everybody should aspire to stay connected to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of Maslow's hierarchy, isn't it, really? Like community is who we are as human beings, being part of something. Yeah, and I guess not being part of something can make us actually feel lonely, disconnected, and all the above that comes with it. Let's talk about your career. So what happened? So you're growing up at Mount Gambier. When did you decide to move away and chase a career?
So in Mount Gambier at that point in time, if you wanted to go to university, there wasn't any other choice but to move to Adelaide or to Melbourne, because Mount Gambier is right in the middle. So I moved to Adelaide and I did my Bachelor of Business degree in accounting.
It's a big move at 18, 19 years old?
Yep, so I was 18 when I moved here, and I was really lucky because I actually moved in with some friends that I had known for a very long time.
It's a bit of a party time.
And it was a lot of fun, but it was also a great learning opportunity to move out of home at quite a young age and become relatively independent very early on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And while your family is always there for you, you know, day to day, you're coping with all of the things that you need to with friends who became family.
Essentially
really.
family,
Yeah. So my very close friends, I still consider them family today.
Yeah.
So I did my degree here in Adelaide, and when I graduated, it was really hard to find accounting roles, actually, really difficult. So I ended up working for a really small organisation called the Martin Group of Companies, where I started doing a lot of administration, a lot of accounts payable and receivable and all of those really transactional tasks, which actually later really did benefit me because I understood how everything came together from the bottom up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then I started, I got an accounting role with a company called Workspace Commercial Furniture. And so I did that job. And then I moved into probably, which is the biggest component of my career to date, where I worked for SACBH in the agricultural sector, who went through a significant period of growth and change while I was there.
Very good.
Turning into Ausbol, KBB Grain,
Yeah.
Viterra, and then ultimately Glencore. So I was 12 years in agriculture, predominantly in the finance space. But I had leadership roles across Australia and New Zealand, so that was really interesting and a great role for me. And during that time, we also bought a malting company, and I spent a year in Melbourne transitioning that business back to Adelaide. It was a great time, and I learnt a lot about M&A.
I was going to say, it sounded like just the way in which you sort of went through all the different businesses and the growth of the business, sounded like there might have been a few mergers and acquisitions along the path. And what did you learn about that world?
It's really interesting when organisations come together, and the biggest thing that will unstick you is culture.
Oh, without doubt.
Bringing culture together, you can bring transactions together and systems together and all of the management system process, but the culture and the people aspect of it is sometimes the hardest thing to change.
Yeah. Well, you got it's like two galaxies colliding together, isn't it? Two different ways of working, two different, unknown rules. Is that the way of saying it? In the sense that this is the way this business operates, this is the way this business operates, and now actually the clash is going to cause a little bit of unrest.
Yeah, that's right. So I think that's what I learned during that time is it's not easy, but sometimes can be really successful, and really successful organisations can be born from some of those acquisitions and changes. So if it's done well, it can be amazing.
What does success look like for you? When you in those successful mergers, what did you see that, well, in comparison to the ones that didn't work so well, what was the difference?
I think a real focus on change management and the acknowledgement that things aren't always easy to put together.
Yeah.
Having really strong leadership and decision making is vital to that success. So somebody who's really strong about what culture looks like and setting that culture expectation, and also making really firm and good decisions about strategically how the organisation's going to move forward and how how to engage people with that and get them on the journey.
Yeah. Oh, it's music to my ears. We're not paying you to say change management or anything. I guess for me the thought process is, for some reason, and when we talk about good leadership, for some reason, when what we see from a SynergyIQ point of view is that companies forget that it is always about the people, and they go through this merger or they go through a transformation of some sort, and it's about the outcome of that product or service or the joining of two businesses because it's going to help bottom line or whatever. But ultimately, what helps the bottom line the most is actually the focus on people, and connecting them and helping them make sense of what we're actually now trying to achieve as a business, right? What's our vision? What's our mission? What's our values? How do we work together? How do we show up every day? So I think it's a really important point.
I absolutely agree. And of all the management system, you can put people, data, system, process. If you don't concentrate on the people component of that management system, then it doesn't matter what you put in. If the people aren't going to adopt it or use it, then it's not going to be embedded.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. You think about buying a kid a toy and then they not know how to use the toy doesn't get used, right? Like it's the same methodology.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I think I am interested in the mergers. When we talk about successful mergers, what does that look like to you?
I think when businesses can come together and be stronger and more successful at the end and create great culture and create really positive aspirations and really deliver on purpose of the new organisation, then that's really powerful. But there's lots of documented stories about things that haven't worked well.
Yeah.
And I think quite often in the due diligence, as part of some of those things, it's the people aspect that is not really considered, and that can make mergers and acquisitions very tricky.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Really good point. The due diligence is generally where it falls down. It's like, the money looks side, the finances looks fine. Here's what we're going to do is we're going to pay you this multiplier and then take over your business. But then they end up losing a lot of the people that were from the original business because they're just not connected to this new way of working or not connected to the culture of the beast that essentially is buying them. Is that right? Is that what you see in your opinion?
Yeah, I think sometimes there's innovation that's also lost as part of those things. So the most successful mergers or acquisitions that I've seen is when the good parts of both organisations are brought in to create the creation of a better organisation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think sometimes innovation can be lost through that process.
Especially if you've got like the bigger buying the smaller, and the smaller one is the more agile, nimble, innovative, and then they're kind of just sucked into the beast that is the bigger business. They're not able to be as nimble because there's more red tape. Yeah, very good point. So what happens from there? So you're at Viterra and you're working your way up the rank, and you joined the Governor's Leadership Foundation at some point along that journey as well. Yeah.
So I think I was one of the only senior female leaders in that organisation at a point in time. Mm-hmm. And I remember presenting to the board about the benefits of paid maternity leave. That just wasn't a thing back then. The government didn't provide it. And we had some really amazing females in our organisation that we wanted to foster into leadership roles. Yep. And so standing in front of a fully male executive and extolling the virtues of why that was really important, was one of the things that I actually did there on behalf and with some of the other amazing female leaders in that organisation at that given point in time. And that was the springboard for the executive nominating me for the Governor's Leadership Foundation program. Yeah, great. And that program probably just changed my perspective a lot on the world, the larger the larger community, really complex, wicked problems that sit out there, and what leaders need to actually do to dig in, to start solving and contributing to the community through helping to solve some of these wicked problems.
Yeah.
And so I was at a point where I'd been in agriculture for 12 years. It was time for a change, and I ended up working at Bedford. So I've been disability for almost 3 years.
It's a big change going from a profit-focused business more so to a care before profit.
Yes, it was. It was a really interesting change, which I really enjoyed, because anchoring yourself to purpose and bettering the community widely is really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, certainly you jump up every day with a different perspective on, how you can help to service your community rather than profit is very important because organisations still need to be sustainable.
You need to survive,
Yeah, absolutely. But it is a different lens to look through, and it is, for me personally, very inspiring to be able to connect to purpose. So I work there.
Can we just jump on before we go into the Bedford Group? I want to go back to the at Viterra when you you stood in front of the male leadership cohort and put these changes in place. Was it well received? Was it was it something that they were open to, or did you have to work hard to change their mindset around it and for them to see the benefit of it?
I mean, I think for that time frame, that executive team was actually very forward thinking.
Yeah.
But wasn't at the top of their priorities of things to look at or perhaps even to consider. So to have that brought before them with all of the pros and cons of actually doing that and supporting female leaders in the organisation, they were really open to that at that particular time. Yeah. So I'm really proud of that.
So how did you go about that, though? I guess that's probably the key point here is for someone who's in that situation and going, look, I'm working in a male-dominated environment. How am I going to get them to see from my perspective or from the perspective of other females within the organisation, and especially emerging leaders and everyone else that we're looking at growing? What was your angle there? What was your process, and how did you go about it? I mean, the angle is a great angle in paid maternity leave, but more around the angle of your way of trying to get them to see what you are seeing and help them make sense of it.
I think talking about the benefits to the business, to the larger organisation and to the culture of the organisation was really how we went about it. And there was lots of case studies of people who'd implemented it and the changes that had made with in their organisation. So there was a lot of examples to show, but really, like most change, what are the benefits to the organisation and what would that ultimately deliver, and how would we measure success into the future? Yeah. All of those things really are quite compelling when you look at how it will benefit the business ultimately. So, certainly the setting context, making sure that, we understand what the business benefits are, and making sure you're courageous enough to bring things up where you see opportunity for change. I mean, there's always opportunity for change, and being brave enough to actually bring that up. That's not an easy thing to do.
Well, I think your point there around, because you can bring up change and you can go, this needs to change, and it falls on deaf ears because there's no real basis to your outside of your perspective. It's like, this needs to change. But when you bring in, this needs to change because here is the benefit to the company, here's the benefit to our people, here's the benefit to our community, here's the benefit to our stakeholders, here's the benefit to our clients, or whatever it might be, and you bring a change to the table and going, here's the potential good that this change, it completely rewrites it, as opposed to you going, this needs to change, and you might sound like someone who complains, if that makes sense. It's like, oh, we've got to do this, but there's no real basis. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they're not bringing to the table how this will benefit the company and everyone in it.
And, the imperative for change, why should we be changing? Why now? Why should this change happen now? And how do we see this change happening and what are the benefits of the
Yeah.
change, really constructing that case for change,
Yeah.
whether you're trying to get a business case across with your board or executive, or you're trying to do a really small change, all of those things are still really important. So,
Yeah.
you know, people need to understand the reasons for change
Yeah.
and the benefits of change.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you would have seen the way we work. We're like SynergyIQ, we're always based on the art of sense making.
Yes.
If you can help people make sense of change, then they are more likely to lean into it than not, right? And so that's essentially like rule of thumb. Whenever trying to push a change through in organisation or in life or in your family, you have to be able to make the people who are going to be receiving the change, you have to help them understand it for them to want to consider it as part of their life. Because, why would we change something that's not broken?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then the governor's leadership, you said that you worked on some really curly and complex community leadership issues. What were they? And like, can you open our eyes to what you were seeing and what, for those who haven't done a program like that, what would the experience be like?
Yeah, it really was about stepping up onto the balcony and looking down at the dance floor and making sure that you could see all of the moving parts. So sometimes taking yourself out and pushing yourself up and looking a bit more broadly really was a valuable learning from that program for me.
Can you give us an example of what that, like, I'm trying to picture what's
so,
looking down at the dance floor. What am I seeing?
Yeah, so I think we did lots of complex challenges. Like one was, you know, in some of the northern regions, the unemployment of young people in the northern region.
Yep.
We also looked at some of the challenges that the Indigenous community face.
Yep.
So those are a couple of examples of what we looked at in that program,
Yep.
but really trying to pull yourself up. And we all come with preconceived ideas or our own bias about certain complex challenges and problems out there, but to actually take yourself out of that, push yourself up and actually try to see a broad and different view is probably the most powerful thing that I learned in that program.
Was with the low unemployment for the teens in the northern. What am I seeing if I'm on the dance floor versus what am I seeing if I'm on the balcony?
So if you're on the dance floor, you might just see a whole raft of young people that can't be bothered to go and find employment.
Yeah, okay.
And so they're all seeking, support, social security support.
Yeah, feels like they're rorting the system a bit.
They don't want to get a job. But if you're on the balcony looking down, you might actually see that some of those young people have had some really significant challenges in their background and their life. And that does make it quite difficult for them to move and succeed as if they had have had a different kind of upbringing or background or opportunities available to them that other people might see, then that might be a very different scenario for them. So how can you put support and help in at all levels for those people that might not have the same opportunities as others?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really important from a context point of view as well. Even when I start this podcast, just can I understand your earliest context to understand where you've come from? And and you're right. I think the balcony provides context, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can take some of your own preconceived bias out of what it is that you're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The governor, I'm actually really interested in the Governor's Leadership Foundation as something for me to do, to be honest. I am very interested in it. So I'm keen to learn a little bit more. What did you learn about yourself in that program? You know, from a business perspective, you're taught to look at things from a wider lens and from a higher from the top down lens. What did you learn about self in that program?
I think it was pretty transformative for me. I had never really considered moving into a for-purpose organisation in the past.
Yeah.
So, I think, my ambition, was to work in large global kind of organisations.
Yeah.
But this really did change the way I saw the world and what I thought I could contribute to some of the, broad challenges. I mean, Bedford people with disability and how the world perceives people with disability, there's a massive opportunity, and it's getting better, but it's nowhere near where it needs to be.
Yeah.
That all people, no matter who they are, have enormous value to society and the community.
Yeah.
So, how you can actually really help change the perception
Yep.
of people with disability and older people.
Yeah.
As people get older, now that I'm at ACH Group, there is ageism in the community.
Yeah, there's absolutely.
We're really trying to turn that around, that all people have enormous value and stories and history and, valued roles that they have valued in the past, enormous rich learnings for the broader community. But that's not how, as you get older, necessarily people perceive you. That you're forgetful, that, that you're not working anymore. So therefore your value...
Yeah, you drive slow.
Your value in the community, you're a slow driver or you're a menace on the roads or whatever that might actually look like. There is a lot of, preconceived ideas about community. And I think for me, that really opened my eyes up to that and really made me think, I really do think that, by contributing to these organisations, I can help change some of those perceptions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you, in that leadership program, you went from, I want to conquer the world almost in some of the biggest businesses to actually, I'm going back to my grassroots of community and purpose.
Yep.
I think so. That's a huge self-reflection.
It was a big change in trajectory,
Yeah,
really.
I can
and,
imagine.
I'd had a child at that time as well, so my priorities were a little bit different because obviously having kids changes your priorities and your perceptions about yourself in a pretty enormous way.
Yeah.
So, I was looking for something new and different, and I still wanted to conquer the world, but just not how I thought I would want to.
Yeah.
So
what did having a child? Because you got a daughter.
Yep.
What's her name?
Olivia. Yes.
Beautiful. Gun netballer, I hear.
Yes.
Parenting's a big thing for me. I'm always trying to figure out how do I be the best leader that I can be, realize the visions that I want to within my business and my own personal life, as well as, being a great father. What did you learn about yourself when you became a mother, and what are you continuing to learn about yourself?
What I learnt was that I used to be incredibly selfish.
I think we all learned that one, yeah.
I didn't become a mum until I was 38.
Yeah.
So, that's...
that's a bit more ingrained in your...
so I'd lived a long, good life before I had children, and I'd also, had fairly senior roles before I had Olivia as well.
Yeah.
So for me, going to a place where I was just a mum was a real challenge, actually. But also children are hard work.
Yeah, they are.
People say, oh, you're going to go on maternity leave, you'll get a break. It wasn't a break. It wasn't a holiday.
Yeah.
It's a really tough
Strap
thing.
yourself in.
Exactly. So I think, it does teach you a little bit about, when you lose one of your other valued roles, so you gain a valued role, so you're a mum now, and that's amazing. But you've lost a bit of a sense of self as well because you're not working anymore. People who used to ask for my valued opinion on a daily basis wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
And there was no one to talk to.
No adult conversation.
You couldn't have, eat by yourself or everybody. I think what it teaches you is your child's needs come before your own. And that's a big change. It's a big flip. But I wouldn't take it back. I just love her dearly, and she's taught me so much as a person, and I think being a parent makes you a much better leader as well, because you're very highly empathetic towards the people that work with you, because everybody has challenges and things outside of work.
Yeah, and if you think about parenting from a leadership perspective, you have to let them go out and scruff up their knees and make mistakes and fall over and trip over and I think making mistakes it is, and that is something that you almost have to do as a leader within a company as well, right? You can't, this micromanagement aspect, you can't control what everyone's doing. You have to have the faith that they're going to do the right thing, they're going to go about it in the right way, and they might not get to the destination in the way that you might get there based on your experience, but it's allowing them to make that choice.
The hardest part of leadership is letting go.
Yeah.
I mean, as I've moved through my career, I've been in really operational roles, and now as the CEO, that is one of the biggest challenges that I have, is letting go of all of the operational and letting other people do the things that I used to do. Yeah. That is a real challenge because you want to go in and fix it. You're dying to. You really want to go and do it. And you know that that's not going to help anyone. And the people that, are aspiring to succeed in those roles, they might do things completely differently to the way you have done them. Yeah. But you have to let them do it and have a go. And if they fail, that's okay. Create a safe environment for people to fail. That's all right for them to do that. But watching that sometimes is extremely difficult. Yeah, I can imagine. And it's the same with your children. You tell them what you think is the right thing to do. If they do it differently, it might work out, it might not, but you also have to let them, take their own path. I'm
with you. I think that is one of the biggest struggles of leadership, in my opinion, is this. You can almost read the play, right? You can almost see it and you go, this is where it's going to end up if we go down this path. But you're not really allowed to step in. I know that sounds silly, but the idea of actually letting the team, those in which you've empowered and entrusted, to make and see it from their perspective and build it in the way that they build it, actually probably ends up turning out better most of the time. Most of the time. Yeah. I think that's for me, that's been one of the biggest learnings. This is your first CEO gig, isn't it? It is. How have you found it?
Yeah, it's been enormously rewarding. It feels like the next logical step. I was the Chief Operating Officer at ACH Group for a few years prior to this appointment, and it was an aspiration. It is different, and as I said to you before, it's sometimes difficult to leave your operational expertise in the safe hands of others. And
when you're going from operations, which is the essence of doing everything, to then now I'm monitoring company performance.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And working directly with the board is a new skill as well that I'm learning. I'm really enjoying it. I think we've got a great relationship between the executive and our board, and between myself and our chair. Yeah. I think that's really critical to creating an open and transparent environment between the board and the organisation. But certainly being the pivot between the organisation and the board is something I'm learning. Yeah. Doing podcasts like
being in the spotlight.
Doing marketing and being in the spotlight, that's a really part of a skill set that I'm really trying to develop. But that is probably it's my biggest area of development. Yeah.
You're doing well. The board is an interesting one for me. What does that look like for you first time that you walk in and now you have this relationship with the chair, which I know is probably one of the most important relationships in any business, is the CE chair relationship. What does that look like? Unpack that for us, for those who don't necessarily see that side of the world more often.
I think I'm incredibly fortunate because while we have got some new members on our board, I have spent a lot of time in the boardroom in my previous roles within the organisation. So it's not an uncomfortable place for me to be in. And responding to questions of the board and being part of board committee structures is not unfamiliar. So for me, I think it's not like I walked into the boardroom for the first time and met the board for the first time. Yeah. So I think for me, it was I'm really lucky because I really know a lot of our board members quite well.
Yeah, great.
And that's made the transition a lot easier for me. And they're all great contributors to our organisation. They all pose great questions and I think push the executive in the right way and challenge us in the right way.
Beautiful.
So I think being open to their questions and being open to feedback is really important.
Yeah, great. So you walk in as I know that you were at ACH Group for a while and you were COO, so it wasn't like you were unknown to the company. But essentially, you're still walking into the CEO role, day one. What's the message that you give to the company? Do you start thinking about change and innovation, or what did that look like for you in that first couple of weeks? Is it and the new world of Linda as CEO?
So I was the interim CEO for a 6-month period.
Yep.
So that was a good introduction to what it looked like to be the CEO. But certainly there's a little change in perception from the organisation when you are the CEO.
You are now, yeah, correct. Because you're always just, will she get the job, will she not?
Yeah.
Now it's like, this is it.
Yeah. And, I think that there's, now I get to do some of the things and lead the organisation forward in my way. Mm-hmm. And that's a bit different as well. So
what is your way?
So I think, for me, I really value leadership. I think everybody deserves to have an inspiring leadership. We've been investing a lot in our leadership.
Yeah, great.
And I think, in terms of high performance, we went through a big process to change our operating model a few years ago.
Yep.
So continuing to embed that kind of matrix leadership style within our organisation has been a big challenge. Yep. But I'm a big fan of that.
Yep.
Aligning.
So can you explain that to us, the matrix leadership style?
Yeah, so I think we have unpacked our operating model to really align leadership with capability.
Yep.
When I first opened the doors into, our residential business a few years ago, we had, one of our home managers had almost 400 staff directly reporting to her, which is not achievable.
No,
so breaking down capabilities.
It's a lot of PDs.
Yeah, and assigning ownership of key things like allied health and social and our care worker workforce, and really getting good leaders that know and can develop those capabilities. And then the cross-stream running residential and home care, and our clinical capabilities. So there's downs and a crosses, and we're really trying to ensure that we build a collaborative leadership environment. But that doesn't come without its challenges, and having clear communication, clear accountabilities and responsibilities is really important in that. Culture as well. We've just completed ACH Group's 3rd culture survey. Amazing results there.
Great.
It does really show that we are really starting to turn the dial on engagement with our frontline staff and engagement with our, and we also know the pockets that we need to work on. Yeah. So continuing to push and culture. So for me, implementing strategy, leading culture, they're kind of the 2 key things that the CEO needs to really concentrate on.
Yeah.
So those are the things that are firmly on my radar as well. Aged care has a lot of reform coming its way. Yep. So, regulation and regulatory is also big on the agenda, and making sure we can transform our businesses in line with those new changes.
I love it. What have you learned about yourself since becoming the CEO? I think, I heard you earlier and even before, and I'm going to throw you under the bus a little bit. Before the podcast, you said you were very nervous and all the above. And now you're talking about, being in the spotlight and the marketing and being out there and being the face, essentially, of ACH Group. Have you learnt, or have you ever felt the imposter syndrome kick in, or have you ever felt that, why me sort of feeling that I guess a lot of leaders feel when they're in that position?
That's a really interesting question, actually, because I have been asked that question before. Not really. And maybe it's because I've come through the system.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
started in finance.
Yep.
Then took over the home care part of our organisation.
Yep.
Then took over residential and home care. Then
Yeah, so you
became
know
the
this
COO. I know this business
intrinsically, don't you? Yeah.
inside out and back to front. So I think for me, it feels like I need to learn some new skills, like marketing and communication and all of those externally facing skills.
Yeah.
But I'm really confident in the business.
Yeah.
So I haven't really suffered from that, but probably it's due to the way I came through the system to become the CEO and the deep understanding I have of our organisation.
Yeah. Where does that, what I've heard consistently throughout not only just this conversation, but every conversation you and I have had previously, there is this desire to want to improve and continually improve. Mm-hmm. It's a theme that I hear from you all the time. And as you sit here, you say, I'm keen to improve my area of marketing, my communication, and all the above. I mean, your self-awareness and your regulatory process of going, this is where I'm at, this is where I need to be. Is there a model? Is there a framework, or is that just come to you naturally? How do you reflect on where you are, and how do you bring your best version to the work and to the business, which is obviously a very purposeful business? How do you reflect on that?
I think I've done a lot of psychological profiles in the past.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of them, but I think there's always something to take out of 360 feedback.
Yeah.
There's always something to take out of, your leaders' reflection of you. There's also a real opportunity to use tools like DISC. It's a simple one, but it's also very powerful. Mm-hmm. Do you know what your strengths are and where you naturally will go?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I'm on the DISC, if anyone knows that. I'm a high ID, like at the top of the circle.
Yeah.
So therefore I go fast. I want to do things.
Yeah.
I want to innovate. And I'm really conscious of that, because sometimes I'll be on the bus, I'll be driving that bus, and I'll be driving that bus so fast.
Yeah.
I know exactly where we're going, and I'm driving, but I'll turn around, there's actually not many people in the back of the bus.
Yeah.
So you do have to be really conscious of what your strengths are, but also awareness about yourself and what you can improve on, because, I might be sitting here today as the CEO, but there is always ways to improve yourself, and feedback will always help you improve yourself even further.
Yeah.
So really taking on some of that feedback, knowing who you are, knowing who the people you work with are, and that not every interaction that you have with an individual can be the same.
Yeah.
There is some situational leadership that you have to apply depending on who you're working with. And going into conversations where you're the winner, I want this done, that rarely works for anyone.
No.
So you have to go in with, awareness about what the pressures are of other people, and how they like to work. Because if you go in high level, here's an idea, let's go do it, the person who's sitting in that C category is going to say, I don't like this, I'm uncomfortable, I need information, I need facts, I need time to absorb this.
Correct.
So
you need to make sense of it, right?
Right, make sense of it. So if you're trying to get something in without that, with this person, that will rarely work for you. So really understanding the people that you work with, how they like to work, and awareness of yourself and how your strengths can be overplayed.
Yeah.
That's really important. Yeah.
I love it. I love your analogy of the bus, and we've got good to great sitting here and playing to win sitting here. So I'll pick your brain on that in a second. But because I'm very similar to you in that respect. Is like my brain moves faster, and I want to always constantly be way out in front. And someone said to me this time, this is the reflection that I was given, is like, Dan, think of like a hills and valleys, and you're out there marching along going, this is where we're going, this is where we're going. and you're at the bottom of a valley, 2 hills ahead of where everyone else might be, and you're saying, "Hey, everyone, this way," and everyone's sort of standing back 2 hills behind, going, "I can't see him. I don't know where he is. I can hear him, but I've got no idea where he's going or how to get there." Which is similar to your analogy of there's not many people on the bus then because they can't make sense of it. So, yeah, I think it is a really good. Moving too quickly can actually derail the whole thing, can't it?
Yeah.
These books here, why are they here, and why did you bring them in today? So, Good to Great by Jim Collins, which is one of the all-time greats, and Playing to Win by Lafferty and Martin, which is also one of my favourite strategy books.
Well, I brought them in because Playing to Win, I'm reflecting on Playing to Win again. At the moment, we're working through some strategy with our board, and I read this book a really long time ago, sort of at the start of my ACH Group journey, actually. But the reflection for me is actually I need to read this book again, because it does really, I think, give you some clear ways to articulate strategy. Yeah. And I think that's really great. So I've got that book because I'm currently reading it, and I'm reflecting on the power of this particular book. Yeah.
What's one thing that's really standing out for you in that at the moment?
I think just really trying to articulate where are you. What do you in each one of our business streams? How are we going to win in those streams? So for each one, what does winning actually look like in that? What do we aspire to do and be? And then some of the how are we actually going to get there? Yeah. And what are the capabilities that we actually need in our organisation, to support that? Right. Yeah. I think it really makes you think about strategically where you want to go, how you want to get there, what capabilities you need to get there. So it's quite a simple, I think it's a kind of a simple way of unpacking strategy, and just helps you, reorganise your thoughts.
Absolutely. And I think because I've read this book, and Playing to Win can almost be a little bit of a misleading title, because it's not about winning in the sense of being number one in the industry, right? It's about winning and being the best that you guys can be, or the best that you can be in your chosen field or your niche or whatever it might be. Is that your way of interpreting it as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think the title, winning is, are you achieving the aspirations that you want to have for your organisation? Yeah. So that's the winning part.
You set what your win looks like, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it helps you just really articulate where you want to go and what you want to do. But certainly, the title win is a bit misleading, but also, you want to make sure that you're achieving the aspirations that you're setting yourself. And I think it does help provide a bit of clarity around that. Yeah.
Well, what aspirations do you have for ACH Group? What's your vision now as CE? Is it the way ACH has been going for the past couple of years, or you're like, nah, I'm gonna change the game a little bit?
Well, I think we've started to do some really innovative things at ACH Group. We had a period of time through COVID where there wasn't much innovation going on, but we did reorganise our operating model. So part of me thinks we came out of COVID better than what we went into it, which was amazing. Where we're taking ACH Group now is, we want to make sure that we're genuinely improving the lives of older South Australians. So we've just recently built Healthier, which is our greenfield purpose-built small home model in the northern suburbs of Adelaide.
Yeah, great.
It is the first greenhouse home outside of America, or it was the first greenhouse project.
Can you explain that? What does a greenhouse home look like?
Yeah, so Greenhouse is an organisation from the US, and it was called out in the Royal Commission as one of the exemplars of how to do aged care in the future. Yeah, okay, so it really is about small home, deep knowing of residents, deep understanding, letting older people's set the rhythm of the day in their home.
Okay.
So it's a very exciting new model of care, and there's the greenhouse project, our own operating model, have come together with our small home build. So we have 8 homes out there, 12 people in each home.
Yep.
And it really is making real home environment for older people. So it's
great.
a it's been enormously successful. We've got really happy residents, really happy workforce.
Yeah.
Workforce attrition is amazing, and our retention is wonderful. We've got, great feedback from our residents about their experience there and the outcomes that they're seeing in terms of their health and well-being and connectedness.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful.
So how is it different in regards to what I would get in a normal home versus this one? Like, what's the key differences in that?
I think it's 2 things. One is the actual small home itself, so the built form, and the bedrooms of that home, come into a shared living space, just like you would have at home.
Okay.
A functioning kitchen, living area, and another living area. So, and the difference there is, in a normal home, you might get woken up at 7 o'clock for your meds.
Yeah.
But actually, most medication is you will have, your medication with breakfast.
Yeah.
So if you don't wake up till 8 o'clock, you will have your medication at 8 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay.
Or whenever you have breakfast.
Yeah.
A small story: when we first opened Healthier, we also have one of the homes co-owned with Narlan.
Yep.
And they have a model of care that we helped to support in one of the houses.
Yep.
I think it was about 9 o'clock in the morning. We had some visiting physicians, geriatricians come to the home, and the staff said, the residents aren't awake yet. And they said, but we're here to do rounds. And they're like, I don't think you understand. The residents are not awake yet.
Yeah.
You'll have to come back later. And they did.
Yeah,
it was
great.
amazing. So I think, we really try to let the residents set their rhythm of the day. The other day I heard...
Which is amazing, isn't it? Like, it's such a small thing. Because, if you're getting it at 7 o'clock every day, it's almost robotic, isn't it? Yeah. Whereas here, it's like, no, I'm going to choose.
Yeah.
Like, when I feel like it, when I wake up, if I want to sleep in, I can sleep in, as opposed to getting awoken at 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever it might be.
So the other night I heard this story about... one of the residents was watching TV actually with one of our multi-skilled workers out there, because we actually encourage that. That's
great.
Normal. We don't just expect our multi-skilled workers to be task-driven.
Yeah.
So they were watching a funny show on TV, and we actually had a new worker who's still learning the new model of care, and she said, "Come on, it's time to go to bed." And she said, "No, we don't do that here.
Yeah.
We're watching something funny. You're not ready to go to bed, are you?" And the resident said, no, I'm not ready to go to bed.
Yeah.
So that's
good.
how that whole model.
Talk about
really
culture,
different.
right? They're living and breathing it as they...
The way they want to, and setting their own rhythm of the day. And it really is that deep understanding and knowing of the people that live there, their stories, their background, their information. Do they like their tea like this or this or this? Those simple pleasures, we really try to foster. We do that in all of our homes, but the built form at Healthier really does help that. And in the future, we're looking at how we can look at all of our existing homes and convert them in their current form into small homes within those big homes.
Yeah, great.
So it's really exciting for us to think about how we can showcase to the industry that you can implement this model of care and it can be really successful and really different and amazing and empowering for the older people that use that service. So that is what is really exciting for us.
Yep.
We've also, just in terms of innovation in our home care business in particular, but more broadly in terms of our digital platform, we're innovating there. We're implementing, our new home care life cycle project, which we've just
gone live
with recently, last week.
Yeah, we love working with you on that one.
Yeah,
give ourselves a little bit of a plug there.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But, really it is about not not accepting what is.
Yeah.
You know, we know that our customers of the future are going to have a lot higher expectations of us than the generation that has come before them, who have been, you know, enormously grateful for whatever they have received. But the baby boomers, they're not just coming, they are here.
Yep.
And with them is a whole raft of new expectations of our sector. And we will need to respond with new and different models of care and new innovation that will support them. And that includes digital platforms, portals, systems, apps, all of those things. So this new system that we've just gone live with is a great starting platform. Craig Carter, he's our CIO.
Great.
You know,
Absolutely. One of the best humans I've met. I love Craig. Yeah. Good man.
Absolutely. He says we're just at the starting line.
Yeah.
This is just getting us to the starting line, and now we can continue to innovate. But what we're doing is trying to map our innovation against our customer journey. So we're trying to make sure that everything we do is got the customer at the centre, and that we're doing this innovation to ensure that our customers will have a more seamless experience, and or our workforce will have a better and more seamless experience so that they can spend more time doing the customer-facing roles and care that they actually love, and less time spent on, you know, back of house functions and really hard work.
Yeah, and look, everything I know about ACH Group, working with you over the past couple of years, is that you are really leaning into this customer-led transformation, isn't it? Like, for me, if I'm going to cast my mind back to growing up, I always saw as, you know, a retirement village or a retirement home was one, or aged care almost, I should say. Aged care was one in which, you know, and I say this from being a young person who saw my grandparents go into aged care and pass away, right? Like, and that was kind of my thought, that you just went to aged care. And a lot of the Italian community that I grew up with thought the same thing. Don't send me there because I don't want to die there. I want to be in my own home and all the above. And that, since working with you guys, my whole thought process on this has changed. Is I actually know what we're trying to do is really make this a great experience for those who are coming in, right? And create it, you know, just even down to the thing of when you take your tablets and waking up and being part of a community. I think it always keeps coming back to community, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I just love hearing the stories that are coming out of it. You know, the other day I was at Healthier's first birthday party. So we've been open for a year. And John, who's one of our residents at Healthier, you know, I said to him, "Oh, how are you?" And we were actually featuring his story because he's growing this amazing garden just outside his room. It's giving him a sense of purpose. People drop in for a cup of tea.
Beautiful.
And
well done, John.
Enjoy his garden. And I said to him, how are you actually going? And he said, "Oh, I'm really loving it here." It was a hard transition for him. Actually, when he first came, he'd spent a lot of time in hospital. But he said to me, "Oh, my sons tell me I'm like Benjamin Button."
Oh, that's great.
And as a CEO, what wonderful feedback to hear about one of your services. It's just extraordinary, the experience that they're having and the impact that it's actually having on the health and well-being of the people that live there. That genuine connection, the deep knowing, the deep understanding and the support that they get, you know, to enjoy their life, set their own rhythm of the day and have their own simple pleasures. It is amazing.
It is great. And I think there's a lot of misconception in the community around what aged care is. And I think what you guys are doing, and I think just the industry itself and where it's going is really exciting, because we're all going to be hit by aged care. We're all going to grow old, right? Like, so we're all our family members, our parents, whatever, they're all going to be in a position where one day we're going to think about that. And yeah, it's exciting to see that the industry is really moving and becoming innovative. It's a slow churn though, isn't it? It's not something that's going to happen overnight.
No, and I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but change management is really hard, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, getting some really robust frameworks, which you guys have helped us develop, and take a different approach to change. So for us, you know, we had in our culture survey a few years ago, one of the questions was, how well do you think ACH Group manages change? and the results weren't great.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had to really think about how to do change differently.
Yep.
We also had some challenges in keeping change embedded.
Yeah.
So having some more robust frameworks and tools for our leadership group to be able to articulate the change, go through that process where we understand what the change process looks like, make sure that that change gets implemented and ultimately sustains over that period of time. You know, are we perfect at it? No, we're not.
No.
Are we actually acknowledging that we need to do change differently and better? Absolutely we are, because we're going to be going through so much change, whether it's a different built form care model, whether it's converting one of our existing homes and creating different change expectations for staff. That's a big journey ahead of us, or we're putting in a digital solution. Like, change is here. It's
constant,
not going anywhere. And all I say to my team is the only thing that I can guarantee is that there will be more change.
Yeah.
And in a sector that's constantly evolving, that change will continue.
Yeah.
Getting better at it is really important.
Correct. And you know, we've loved working with the team at ACH Group, yourself and Craig, leading the way there. One thing that I've really loved about what you guys have done is, you know, you've caught us in, you've noticed that change is not necessarily something that you're strong at, mature at, and you've gone from, and Craig does a keynote on this almost, doesn't he, in the, which I love his clickbait title, which is "You can't control Z your way back," which is a very digital thing. But and the journey from change management to change leadership, you guys are really on that journey, aren't you? You are leading the way. You are focusing on the industry itself, the reforms, and saying this is all the change that's coming in for us to be the best that we can be, for us to be able to give the customer the life that they deserve, the end of their, you know, the latter half of their life that they deserve. We need to improve ourselves here.
Yeah, and innovation can be big.
Yeah.
It can be very small. And, you know, really you need some space to make sure that you continue to change, because keeping yourself where you are won't help you sustain your organisation into the future. And if we do stay where we are, we will most certainly not meet the expectations of our future customers.
Yeah.
You know, so you need to stay relevant, you need to stay contemporary, you need to be shown as being innovative, and ultimately you need to meet the expectations of your customer.
Correct. Especially when there's those misconceptions in the market, right?
Yeah.
You have to change to change those misconceptions. Otherwise, people don't want to go to an old home, where an aged care home where they're going to pass away, essentially. And I think, like, I know that thought process is still ingrained in a lot of people in my family, and my wife's family all think the same thing as well. And you know, really scared about that option. It's only when I show them some of the things that ACH Group are doing, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't realise that." So there's a lot of education in the market still required, I think.
And, you know, ageing is a gift.
Yes.
And there's a lot of way in which people can age. And, you know, we're being increasingly supported to age in place at home. And that's wonderful. We've got some amazing health and social programs that keep people connected and enable them to be as healthy as they can be and be as independent as they can be in their own homes.
Yep.
Retirement living's a great way for, you know, people to build security and community around them. So having independent living is for some people a great option, because it can, you know, deliver them a sense of community and help them to age in place. And most certainly I think that those independent or retirement living communities in the future will become more attractive as they become supported models of care for older people. And then, you know, we do have residential care, but we really want to change the, you know, what residential care looks like and show the industry that it can be really successful. You can do it another way and it can be successful. Yeah.
What's the most exciting thing for you that's coming up in your industry, in the aged care? Because it is one of the fastest growing industries in Australia, isn't it, really, or in the world. What's the most exciting thing for you?
I think just continuing to evolve like our care and services into the new generation.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of amazing opportunities in the digital space to actually enable our workforce and our customers, but particularly our workforce, so that they can spend more time on care.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. And I think, the way in which we can analyse data, the way we can predict, the things that are going on for older people, and then do some proactive work with them to improve their health outcomes. I mean, it's really exciting when you think of the digital platforms that are going to help enable our workforce and our customers in the future. So we talk a lot about workforce challenges.
I was going to ask you on that.
Yeah.
I mean, the innovation from the digital aspect should help alleviate some of the workforce challenges, or
I think it will, and hopefully take us to a more proactive space. There's some great technology and innovation out there that is going to enable people to do the work that we want them to do, and that is providing support, care, social support for older people. So if we can take away some of the pain points for our workforce and the pain points for our customers, then that will really enable them to be doing that forward-facing care with our residents and customers, rather than spending a lot of time writing notes and doing all of those really manual things. If you can talk a note and then your note can be posted, that's a really exciting innovation.
Because you want your workforce to be communicating and connecting, don't you? I mean, that's ultimately where it is. You don't want them to be spending 2 hours doing admin every single day, and then there's a fine line between automation, robotics, digital, all the above, and then still keeping connection. Because we know that community connection is one of Maslow's hierarchy, that we need to make sure that's embedded into our model.
And for our workforce, we know that if we can automate the bits they don't like doing, that's a massive win for them.
Yeah, correct.
It's a massive win to their workforce experience and, their retention, their pleasure when they come to work, all of those things. Most people that work in aged care are there for the relationships and the connections and that sense of purpose.
Yeah. How do you attract more people to the industry?
I mean, I think at the moment we are doing really well in attracting workforce.
Great.
And I think being shown as innovators, providing great supportive work environments, making sure that, we reward and recognise staff as they do amazing things.
Yeah.
So
it's a culture again, really.
Absolutely. Your value proposition and your reputation certainly does help to attract people, and certainly offering new ways to automate the bits that people don't like doing is really attractive as well. So simplifying, making sure we're not duplicating process, and that's a real area of focus for us too in that operational excellence space, is making sure that we have really good process efficiency across it. So we're really hoping that attracts great people to us in the future.
Yeah, brilliant. There is a lot of change coming, obviously, with the reforms and everything that are being put out into the world. How are you leading through the uncertainty that comes with those reforms? Or how are you and ACH leading that?
I mean, I think we always try to say that ACH Group is really, really great at adapting ourselves once we know what the rules are. We're also pretty good at predicting what we think it's going to look like.
Yeah.
So by the time that arrives, that change, we're 80% down the road.
Yeah.
And I think if you're waiting...
So you can see the forest from the trees, right?
Yeah. And I think just trying to be proactive on it and trying to get an understanding and start moving before things land. Like if you're waiting for the rules to actually land before you do something, then that's going to take you a long time to adapt and change. But if you're already thinking about it and moving towards it, even if you might not have it 100% right, then it's a tweak. It's not a complete redesign or a completely new project that you have to embark on. So staying on top of reform, understanding it, making sure that you're really au fait with what is coming down the pipeline, and you're building something in response before it happens is really, I would say, how we're approaching reform.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. And, you know, reform is usually there for a reason. If you've got regulation or quality, sometimes those things are things you should know.
Yeah,
Right?
you should be on top of it. Yeah.
So actually embrace the fact that you're being asked for that information because you probably should know it in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I guess it's just a revisiting of strategy all the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like constantly looking in at it. Where are the changes coming? What do we need to do? How do we stay on top of this? How do we stay ahead of the curve? What risks are coming? I mean, all those questions need to be asked consistently, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And refreshing strategy is really important.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, setting long-term strategy. You know that we're in a VUCA environment. Things are changing all the time. So you need to make sure that you're constantly checking in, and refreshing is what we set ourselves to do. Is that still the right thing that we should be doing?
Yeah.
Or do we have some competitive tension now? Or is there something that's coming that's going to disrupt us? Is critical.
Yeah. When you're coming on this podcast and you accepted to come on the podcast, I mean, you know a little bit about us and myself and whatnot. What message were you hoping for everyone to understand about the aged care industry as you came on this podcast?
I think that there is cause for optimism. You know, I think that there is a lot of talk about how people, you know, there is obviously a lot of huge volume of older people coming into the system.
Yeah.
And that will continue to be a big challenge for the government and the sector and all stakeholders into the future. But there are great new and innovative ways in which we could all be working towards that will help us. And I think technology and digital is one of those. But certainly there is, I'm relatively optimistic for ACH Group. I think we're doing some really good and new and innovative things. But, you know, the sector will be challenged by the volume of people coming through.
Yeah.
But also there is government support coming and available. And, you know, we've just got to work through how we find workforce enabled by technology that will help to continue to provide services to older people. But, you know, there's also a great way in which we can further connect up community and to look after older people into the future as well.
When you talk about the volume that is coming into that world, I mean, how are we? Digital is absolutely going to be an enabler, right? But we're still going to need the workforce, aren't we? We're still going to. How is the industry managing this potential wave that's about to hit?
It's a really interesting challenge. And, you know, the new changes to the Support at Home program will certainly help that. Okay. And, you know, people will be asked to contribute where they can. Yeah. And that will also help the sector at large. But, you know, we're attracting workforce to ACH Group and will continue to attract workforce to ACH Group. And I think there will be a lot of work, however, required for us to be able to generate the workforce that will be required in the future. And there'll be lots of coming together across the universities, across government, across aged care organisations.
It's a collaborative effort.
It's a collaborative effort, absolutely. You know, I think we've just got to all work together to work out the best way in which we can support older people broadly. And I do believe that there's a level of consultation that is going on that does give me optimism that we will be able to work together into the future.
Yeah. So if you had to encapsulate your entire journey in one single message, how would you encapsulate it?
I think I'll probably just say, you know, don't say no to opportunities. You know, I'm a finance professional who's now a CEO, and through that whole journey, I took on operational roles that I didn't feel like I was equipped to handle at the time. But I think so many skills that you learn are translatable, and you know, continue to surround yourself with amazing people as well. Continue to foster their aspirations and that's really important too. Surround yourself with a great team, but, don't say no, because you never know where that might take you next.
Yeah.
And it's been an amazing experience for me to have gone through all of these different opportunities to get to where I am now. And if I'd said no along the way, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, correct. And I think there's some strength and courage required to step into ambiguity, because when most people say no because they just don't know what's on the other side. And my understanding, and I've done this many a time, is it's actually that leap of faith, which is where all the learning comes from and all the opportunity comes from. I heard this analogy, which is it's around the shopping centre. So if you think about it, you're walking towards the shopping centre, like let's call it Coles or something like that. And you remember, those doors, the sliding doors that open and close. And so when you are walking towards, if you had no idea what those doors were and they're closed, and you walk towards them, and you're like, I'm walking towards this thing and they're just not opening. What is going on? And you're walking closer, and all of a sudden, whoosh, like the doors open, and then you can step through. And I think that's kind of how I think about what you've just said there, is that most people say no because they can't see that those doors are open, and then they need to make that uncomfortable journey of walking towards those doors, and they're still not opening. It's not till the last minute, bang, they open. And I think for me, that's a really good lesson for people to learn, is that it might not seem like those doors are going to open or opportunities are going to arise, but as you keep going down that path, something eventually does happen.
Yeah, take on opportunities as they present yourself. I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of emerging leaders coming up in this space, in the health sector and the social care sectors. What is your advice to those leaders?
I think be strong on your direction for your organisation. So understand where you want to go, and also make that known and clear to your organisation as well. And innovate. Do things differently. You have to understand what your customers want from you. Yeah. Customer is at the centre of everything we do at ACH Group, and customer is the centre of all organisations. Yeah. So understand what your customers want, and also have broad awareness of your industry and your sector to understand what else is going on in your sector, and make sure that you're continuing to evolve your organisation in lots of different ways, but make sure that you find yourself the time and space to have innovative thought, and try really hard not to squash that innovative thought, even if it sounds ridiculous at the time. Squashing innovation too early. And there's lots of people in your organisation that will like to do that. Yeah. And at some point in time, they'll get their opportunity to challenge that. But, make sure that the people who have great ideas, make sure those people get the space and time to have those ideas before they're squashed by the people that want to know all of the detail and how would that work and what would that actually look like, because there's plenty of time for that. So make sure that you find the right people at the right times to look at all of those new ideas. I would say definitely focus on the ways in which you can innovate to the benefit of your customer. Yeah,
I love that. I mean, without the customer, what are we innovating, right? Like, and just on your point around space, like creating the space, is that something that you've learnt to do? Is that something? Because I'm the type of person that's always go, and it's only recently that now I've started to go, actually, I need to step away here, and I need time to think about this. And I read a book. I mean, you've got those two books here on the table. I read a book called Stillness is the Key by Ryan Holiday, which is a very stoic book, but it very much for me is around actually sometimes doing less is more. It's giving you the opportunity to think. It's taking you out of the everyday operation. It's you can think big picture, think about what it does mean for the customer. Is that something that you actively spend time doing? Like you almost put it in your diary, right? Time to think. Is that something that you do?
I think that's probably my biggest area for improvement
Yeah.
myself right now, because I think the biggest killer of innovation is being busy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So finding time for
Yeah.
that is certainly something we all should do more of. But when you're in a big transformation project, or you're going live with a digital platform, or but we have been really trying to think about, what AI projects are we actually going to test this year?
Yeah.
Right. So we're saying to ourselves, we know we're really busy, but we also know there's things that we need to try. So we're trying to we're finding money, we're finding time, and we're engaging with people that can help us do some of that innovation. So while you're being busy, we are really trying to focus on what are the 2 or 3 things that we don't want to go too crazy with it, but we know these things would have a massive difference to our workforce if we could implement them. One of those things is, talking a note, and it could be not in English, it could be in your native language, for example. Like, how do you actually do that, have it translate and post, rather than sitting, typing, trying to, when English is
there's AI there,
first
we
language.
can use it,
So there's a lot of opportunities that we can use. So we're really trying to, especially now that we've got our platform Play implemented, that we can start to turn on and try things that we know are going to be of benefit to the customer, and we know are going to be of benefit to the workforce. So we are trying to do that, even though we're in the big world of being busy and reform and new systems. So we've got to find some time and space to do those new things.
Yeah. I love it. And look, having worked with ACH for a couple of years now, I think what I've seen from you guys is this desire, and you've mentioned it a few times, to much to my love, is that change and the focus on the people is at the forefront of everything that you're doing. And you talked about your survey results earlier being not so great a few years back to now, after focusing on leading change in a way that is going to help everyone understand and make sense of where they're going, and people are much more on board with it. And this most recent Go Live event that you've had, I understand, whilst it still has its ups and downs, and change always does, it's been a much smoother transition and journey than previously. So, I'm really loving your position on this. It is always about the people. It's always about thinking differently. It's always about the customer and caring about what they need in order for our business to innovate and change. So thank you for that. I'm going to jump into some quick fire questions before we round off the podcast. What's outside of these two here, Playing to Win and Good to Great? What's one book that you've read or recommended the most? One book that you've recommended the most.
Well, that's the reason why I bought
you bought those two? Yeah.
So I bought Good to Great because this book was actually given to me when I first started at ACH Group.
Yep.
So Mike Runge, who was our former CEO, been 30 years in the job.
Yeah, wow.
Every single leader that started in our organisation throughout his reign got a copy of this book.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So, I think Good to Great is a really good book. Lots of examples in there.
Yeah.
Like really practical examples of
Brilliant.
organisations. So, this book was gifted to me by Mike, and I'd suggest if anybody hasn't read it, you should. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you used the analogy of on the bus before as well. I think it is. It's got some pearlers, the flywheel, everything else.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah.
Yep.
What's one lesson that's taken you the longest to learn?
So I think really it is about speed and pace, and I talked about that a little before, but that's my go-to.
Yeah.
I love going fast and hard and really want change to happen overnight.
Yeah.
That's just my personality.
Yeah.
And I think, that the hardest thing to learn is that not everybody is like that.
Yeah.
And it's really important to have leaders that are like that, and it's really important to love the leaders that ask for a lot more information and not get frustrated by that ask. Is you really need a balanced view. So for me, that is still my biggest watch out, because I know that I like to go fast.
Yep.
And I know that some people in our organisation don't like to move that quickly. So that is, for me, and remains my biggest and longest. I still haven't nailed it.
No,
Let's just say that.
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear on that one. What's some of the best advice you've ever received?
One of the best pieces of advice I have ever received is just get started.
Yeah.
Just start.
Yep.
Right. So if you're in that space where you don't know what to do and you're procrastinating, just get started on that. And if you just start, then usually your thoughts start to flow.
Yeah.
So that's a great piece of advice. And, when I'm finding myself procrastinating on something, I still say that to myself. Just get started.
Yeah.
And if you start somewhere, then eventually...
Well, this is it. The path opens up for you. It's like,
Yeah.
you got to walk towards those doors.
Yeah.
You've just got to start.
Yeah.
Otherwise, those doors they're not going to open.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I can see you've taken some notes. You've done a bit of research on my quickfire questions. Now, I've changed them up on you here. So recently I said to Gabs, I'm going to change these up. So one of the new questions I've got is, how has failure or apparent failure set you up for later success?
I think there's been projects that we've undertaken that haven't been all of that successful. And it's okay when they're not successful, but you do have to try things. And if they don't work, then that's okay. And if they do work, that's also great.
Yep.
But, we have trialled a few things over time which just have not worked, and you've had to just kind of call it a day and recognise that those things, they're not working.
Yeah.
And it's okay that they haven't worked, but you did give it a go.
Yep.
And it hasn't worked, so you just have to move on from that. So we try to make that part of the culture at ACH Group, is it's okay to fail.
Yep.
Try something, doesn't work, but call it early.
Yeah.
Don't let it drift on and on.
Don't keep
and
throwing
on
money
and
at
on.
it. Yeah.
No. So I think that, trying things is great. Accepting failure is also fine, but don't keep doing it. So a few years ago, we had a scheduling project which wasn't very successful, and we started to impact, the decisions of that project started to impact our customer experience. And calling that a day and changing the way that then worked, that was a big learning for us.
Yeah.
But as soon as it particularly starts to impact customer experience, that's the time to reevaluate.
Yeah.
And you can't be that far down the road that you don't pause and go, actually, that's not working. We need to either reverse or we need to change our trajectory here. So as soon as it impacts customer experience in particular,
Brilliant
you
learning.
need to call it.
Well done. And there's always a silver lining, isn't there, with these sort of failures or mistakes
We
that
learn
we
enormously
correct.
from failure. What worked, what didn't work,
Correct.
what will we do differently? Even in this latest project, we've said to ourselves, as we've gone live, what did we do, this time that when we go to, we're in pilot at the moment, but when we go to the full rollout, are there things that we've learnt from this?
Correct.
Because it didn't all go 100% well, went amazingly well, but not 100%. What can we learn for next time?
Yeah.
And capturing those learnings for the future is really important.
So another new question. If you could swap lives with anyone for a day, who would it be?
I'd swap lives with Taylor Swift.
Oh, yes.
No doubt. 100%. Who doesn't want to be
I don't want
a
to.
gorgeous billionaire?
Is she a billionaire now?
She is absolutely a billionaire.
Yeah, wow.
Smart, great role model,
Yeah, it's something about her music that just doesn't do it for me. So
Yeah.
I got lucky actually. I say I got lucky. That my girls, I got two daughters, 10 and 13. They don't really like Taylor Swift. So no, but I understand, and she is a great role model. She is definitely a great role model. So I understand the hype about what she's doing.
So that's an easy one.
Yeah, brilliant. If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere in the world, actually let's call it Madison Square Gardens or Times Square, what would it say on it and why?
I think just never give up. Never give up. Never give up. There's always something new and different that you can try.
Yeah.
And, you've got to, if you're resilient, just keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Yeah. I was told, to your point earlier of the two hardest things in the world is to start and to not give up. And it's funny because in this quickfire alone, you've said just start and not give up. And I think that they are the two hardest things in the world, to start and to not give up. So, yeah, really, really important. If you were to start a podcast, what would it be about? What's something you're passionate about that you could talk about for hours and hours?
I would talk about ageism.
Yeah?
Tackling ageism. How we can, change that perception for older people. Absolutely. I think it's, something that every single leader in our industry has an obligation to do.
Yeah.
Is really try to change, how people perceive older people in our community and the value that they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. ACH podcast coming up. Get Craig to that. He would love that. Craig would absolutely love that. If you could be famous for one thing, what would it be?
Famous for one thing that I can actually do, or
yeah, you're just famous for one thing.
That's a great question.
You go down the Taylor Swift path.
No, I would just like to be. I would like to be famous for being a great leader and inspiring others and enabling their success.
Yeah, I like that. Enabling their success. If you could time travel to any event in history, where would you go?
It's a good question. I would probably go back in time just because most recently I've been spending lots of time with the Australian War Widows, and I would love to go back in time and meet Jessie Vasey, who was the founder of the Australian War Widows Guild.
Yeah.
So she founded that guild. She was also really important in terms of, looking after ladies who'd been widowed through the war, and she was an absolute inspiration actually in helping and supporting those people. I would love to go back in time and meet Jessie Vasey because I think she's actually a real inspiration, and she was one of the first people that really empowered women. Yeah.
Amazing. I had this conversation with my daughters the other day. So it's amazing that you said this because we were talking about war with my on the car drive into work, as you do, just talk about war, and we were talking about World War II and how a lot of the baby actually started from the Gen Z, the Gen Y, like all the different generations. We're talking about baby boomers, and they're going, "What does baby boomers mean?" I said, "Well, after the war, there was a lot of babies born because war during the war it wasn't a safe time, so people were holding off and all the above." And one of my daughters asked, "But didn't a lot of men die? So how were they having all the baby?" And I was like, "It's a bloody good question." And now that you've brought this the widow thing up, it's just made me think. It's something that I've never really thought about before. Is the women of the widows? Yeah.
Yeah, and they're an extraordinary group of people. The ladies of the Australian War Widows Guild, they're an extraordinary group of people. And she was a trailblazer, really, in terms of, supporting women and empowering women through that very difficult period of time. Yeah, and she's a really inspirational lady.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Love it. If you could have any superhero power, what would it be?
Just to snap my fingers when I got out of bed and be completely ready. I would love that, to not have to go through the process, just to be completely ready.
That's so good.
Every single day.
How much time would you save?
Oh, it would be extraudinary. You'd get hours and hours and hours back into your life.
So good. Right, last one, and typically my favourite question of the whole podcast, and I hope you bought one. Do you have your best dad/mum joke? So your shit joke.
What do you call a pony with a cough?
What do you call a pony with a cough?
A little horse. I'm terrible at jokes.
That's brilliant. It's supposed to be bad, so that is brilliant. Well done. Thank you very much for your time today, Linda. It's been amazing chatting to you and getting to learn more about you, your leadership journey, your thoughts on the aged care and the great things that you guys are doing down at ACH Group. I guess I speak on behalf of everyone in the industry. Kudos to you and the team at ACH Group for the great work that you're doing and the commitment to the cause that you guys are on. It's really exciting to see you and the likes of yourself and Craig and the team really shaking and innovating and really trying to lead the way for the betterment of our aging population. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. That's it from us. We'll catch you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the podcast all. You can check out the show notes if there was anything of interest to you and find out more about us at SynergyIQ.com.au. I am going to ask, though, if you did like the podcast, it would absolutely mean the world to me if you could subscribe, rate, and review. And if you didn't like it, that's all right too. There's no need to do anything. Take care, guys. All the best.